Let's do some baby bags. Come on.
Nothing special here, just some HEB Smithfield extra meaty baby bag ribs. Come on. You could do the same thing on St. Louis ribs. I prefer a baby back rib, me personally. I like the fat to meat ratio. The one thing I do like about the St. Louis though is that they're flatter and you have less problems with pooling when it comes to your fat content pooling on top, messing up your rub. But that's all right. All right, I'm gonna cut these open. With my extremely dull knife here. No, I haven't sharpened anything. Let me pour all this juice out. Simple pimple. Alrighty, the first thing I do is I pretty much just kind of get out of there. I pat this down, get some of that extra juice off. It's very juicy. I'm going to talk about this. Today I'm going to be doing this in the oven just because I don't feel like messing with a bunch of cleanup. Potter Piper reached out to me. He said it'd be nice to go ahead and do in the oven. He said a lot of guys right now are in the cold season and, you know, depending on where you live. I'm fine here in Texas. We do have a nice cold front. Today would have been a great day to actually use the pellet grill, but I honestly don't want to mess with the cleanup. So I'm going to speak on this as if I'm doing it in the oven, but also on my pellet grill. So the first thing you want to do, obviously, I don't get carried away with extra meat. Sometimes you'll have a flap of skin under here. Sometimes I'll cut that off if I think it might burn. A lot of people will actually come in here if it's competition and square them up, cut off some of the sides. I don't do none of that nonsense. I don't care. So what I will do, a lot of people pull the silver skin right here, okay? That's pure collagen. It's good for you. There's a guy named Mad Scientist Barbecue. He's done a million different types of tests. If you come in here and score that up, just score it up, you can A/B all day long and you're not gonna be able to tell the difference between smoking a baby back rib or a St. Louis rib if you pulled the silver skin versus scoring it up like that. I quit pulling my silver skin once I found out that if you just make some minor abrasions in it, the smoke will actually penetrate into the meat. Okay, so that's just the very first thing I'm gonna say. Now, let's go ahead and get her seasoned. I'll put a binder on here. It doesn't matter what you use for a binder. You don't even have to use a binder. Typically the rib is wet enough to where you could get away with just using its natural juice. A lot of people like to use like olive oil or, you know, avocado oil or just whatever the hell you want. I've done all different types of ways. Oh, good Lord, I'm about to knock my phone over. I do mustard. It cooks off, you can't taste it. I will say this, it's been brought to my attention that olive oil does not actually do well at high heat. It does change the molecular structure and supposedly what it turns into at high heat is actually rancid and bad for you. I used to marinate a lot of steaks in olive oil and I quit doing that because it just, I mean, I know it has a lower smoke point than say avocado oil, but they say that if you take olive oil to high heat, it's doing something to that oil that is just not good for you. Okay, so I got my binder on this one side. I'm gonna keep this pretty simple. So I've got some Heath Ryle rubs here. You can do whatever you want. You can buy any store-bought rib. You're just gonna have to shop around and do some cooking with it and figure out what you like and what you don't like. You can make it pretty vanilla. You know, you can just do salt and pepper, especially if you're smoking it. A lot of people They're kind of like purists. A lot of people just want to smoke this on a stick burner, kind of like that mad scientist guy. He doesn't like to introduce a bunch of rubs on his meat. He feels like it takes away from the flavors that's imparted by the natural smoke. These are going in an oven. Even if I was doing this on my pellet grill, it's not the kind of smoke he's talking about. He's talking about real offset chunks of wood smoke. So just, you're gonna have to figure out what you want. So this is like a salt, pepper, garlic jalapeno. I'm not gonna go crazy with it. That's all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do some of this hot barbecue rub because I like stuff spicy. And even though there's not a lot of meat on this side, I still like to penetrate, get both sides covered in some kind of a rub. This is Heath Ryle's sweet barbecue rub. This is famous for many of his competitions that he's won when he first came on the scene. And he's won many more after with different rubs. But he's got good rubs, but man, I'll be honest, I've tasted plenty, there's a lot of good rubs out there, okay? Malcolm down at How to Barbecue Right's got some amazing rubs. There's all kinds of rubs. Hell, years ago, I was buying, remember Emerald? He had his own cooking channel. I was buying his rubs and I would just add cayenne to it. That shit was fire. Like, you wouldn't think some Yankee, wasn't he like up north? You wouldn't think he'd know a damn thing about getting Southern barbecue down, but those rubs were fire on baby back ribs. I would just have to spice it up. I ain't gonna lie, that shit was fire. Alrighty. So I think I'm gonna do some kind of a like honey rub sauce at the end. So ordinarily I would add a little bit of this honey rub, but I think because I'm gonna make some kind of a glaze, I'm not gonna do that until the end. So I'll leave that be. All right. I'm not too worried about this side. So let's give her a flip. There we go. Same thing on this side. I'm gonna be going through these gloves like a doctor, like a proctologist. I tell you what. Garlic jalapeno. And you gotta be careful with these rubs because Heath Ryles is a competition barbecue cooker, and he's got a lot of YouTube videos and walkthroughs on what he does. And just keep in mind, competition barbecue is extremely rich. I don't recommend cooking it competition style unless you're just gonna eat one or two bones. If you plan on clearing through a whole rack of ribs, you're gonna wanna be a little less liberal on how much you're putting on there because I know this seems like a lot, but it's not compared to how much rub he puts down when he's doing competition. I'm being far less liberal here. Too rich can be bad, man. That's all I'm trying to say here, okay? Come back with that sweet barbecue a little bit more. Sweet barbecue, baby. It does kind of have the tendency to want to clog up. I wish my light was a little bit better in here. You work with what you can. That's all you can do, okay? Now, I like things spicy. I'm gonna throw down a layer of cayenne. It's right here in the drawer. Could have been a little bit better at spreading that out, but most people the heat will cook off. A lot of the heat will cook off. So just understand it. Trying to spread that out a little bit. All right, that's it. We're just gonna let this sweat in. It's already pretty much sweat in. And I'll be back. Ribs have more than sweated through. So I got the oven heating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it hits 350, I'm gonna throw it in here for 2 hours. 2 hours at 350. Come on with it. Alrighty. Forget the process on the pellet cooker. I'm just gonna do a whole separate video on that, so I won't be talking about that anymore. It was making this video too complicated and stupid. So I threw it in the oven at 350 degrees. We're gonna let it go 2 hours, and then we'll move on to the next step a little bit later. I got that 80s thing going, bro. The only other thing I forgot to mention, I'll use this fan stanner custom-made candle holder as an example. Love this candle holder. Wouldn't sell it or get rid of it for the fucking world. When you lay out your ribs on your cooking tray, if you imagine laying it out and pulling it, how you lay that rib is how it's gonna cook. So what I typically do is when I lay it out on that rack, I bunch it together, because if you stretch it out, you've got separation between bones. That meat's real thin. If you bunch it together, you get a nice meaty bite. However you lay that rib is how it's gonna cook. Keep that in mind. All right, I'm gonna try to make a sauce here. What I've got here is just a little bit of HEB apple juice. This Mike's Hot Honey is delicious. I've used this for butter baths. I'm gonna add this to the apple juice. And I think I'm actually gonna use, this is brown sugar. I just put it in an empty Heath Riles garlic jalapeno rub. I think I'm gonna sprinkle the brown sugar directly onto it. I was considering adding it in here, and I might, we'll see. I might do both. But I'll baste it with that when it comes out, and then we'll go back in. So I went ahead and I added some sweet rub and hot barbecue rub and cayenne to it. I'm hoping I can cook this down. It's way too thin. I may have put too much apple juice in it. We'll see. I put some butter in here. I'm hoping that'll work as like a thickening agent. It tastes good, but it's real rich and sweet, so I think I'm going to use very little of it. I'm going to keep playing with it. Keep on playing with her. The butter was the trick. She's thickening. I'm going to let her cool. I don't want her to get too much thicker than that. It's still pretty hot, so I'm thinking it'll thicken up as I cool. If I need to fire it back up, I will. I still got like another hour before these ribs are ready for the next phase. Tastes delicious. All right, my sauce came out a little too rich. There's nothing wrong with it, but I certainly can't apply it like it's barbecue sauce across every square inch of the top of those ribs. It's going to be uneatable. Way too rich, way too sweet. So if I can, I may go ahead and just allow some drizzle on the top of it. And then I'm going to add some more hot barbecue rub and some brown sugar. The creator of this method, I have to deviate away from what he's doing because he's actually doing a sauce at the end, and he's going back in at 450 to get that sauce tacked up for 10 minutes or so, and then he does a little broil thing at the end to crisp up the sauce. I'm not doing none of that because I'm not putting down really any sauce. I'm just doing a light layer of drizzle. So I'm just going to pull it out at the 2 hour mark. I got about 20 minutes, and then I'll thermoprobe it See what the internal temp is, and we'll just kind of go from there. It's so cool out here. It feels great. It's gray, it's overcast, but God, it feels good. All right, we got 2 hours. Let's pull her out. Hopefully the top is kind of cooked on. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not not perfect. Oh. We're close. 194. All right, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get this glaze on. I'm just gonna do some drizzle. Cool beans. Go back with a little hot barbecue. I forgot to grab my gloves. So I'm about to hurt myself. Hot. Put some brown sugar in this empty Heath Riles shaker. I'm going to shake some of that on here. Just be careful with this, it will burn. I love brown sugar on baby back ribs. I couldn't. Spicy, sweet, that's what I like. And I'll be honest, man, I'm just gonna throw it back in at 350 until I'm around 210. So I'm gonna go about 15 minutes, and I'm gonna call it good, regardless of where it's at. I'll be back. I did go ahead and turn it up to 450. So I stuck it back in at 350, and the oven had dropped to 310 degrees Fahrenheit. I went ahead and turned it up immediately to 450. We're just now at 428. I've got about 10 minutes or so left on my timer, something like that, 8 minutes, 9 minutes. I'm watching it, but I feel like I put enough drizzle to where it actually might need the extra heat. And I may at the end, depending on how it looks, throw a little broil on it. But I don't know that that's gonna work too well with that brown sugar. I didn't go the full 15, I went about 12 minutes because I made the mistake of, I should have replaced the lining of this foil, because everything's fine with the meat and the ribs, but it started burning, the old grease started burning. But I convinced myself, I had all that set out here, but I threw it away because I convinced myself I was never gonna turn it up. And anywho, I'm gonna call that good. We've got some good pullback, some good disintegration here. I never did retest the I'm gonna call that fine. It's a little under, but I'm calling that fine. I keep hitting bone. Yep, I'm gonna let her rest for about 10 minutes and then I'll cut her up. Good bend. It turned out okay. I have so many Heath Riles rubs that honestly my favorite is the honey chipotle and the pecan. I like the sweet barbecue, but I like to mix things up. Turned out it was fine. Wasn't my best batch of ribs by any means. The way I make ribs, I really push the limits with savory and sweet and spicy. And so if you're not careful when you do that, it's easy to overdo it. I don't feel like I overdid that, but the smoked ribs are better. Any day of the week, they're better. Have a nice night.